Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of Caught Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a great show today. We're going to kick it off here in just a minute with Laura Rutledge, and then we're going to end the show with Gainesville Sun columnist Pat Dooley. But first, let's go straight to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Laura Rutledge. Good morning, Laura. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I tell you what, this is great company. Pat Dooley, one of my favorites of all time. So I'm honored to be on with you.
We won't tell him that he's one of your favorites.
Tell him he's got a hard act to follow. That's what you should tell him, right?
That's right. Well, this is the first time we've had a beauty queen on the show. Let's start. You were a Miss Florida here in the state of Florida. But before that, you grew up here in the state of Florida. I believe you're from the Celebration High School. Did you play sports growing up? I know I read about you. You're a big ballet dancer, but did you play any sports?
So I was actually horrible at sports, which is one of the reasons why I pursued ballet and why I also played a lot of musical instruments. That was kind of my other thing in addition to ballet. But I ran a little tiny bit of track, but I basically was on the track team in middle school because I was really flexible from ballet. And so they would use my flexibility record to set the state record every time that we would go to a meet. So I really didn't contribute that much to it, but always have loved sports. And it is funny. I mean, people that knew me, before I really got into this, when I was at University of Florida, they were like, wait a second, what? You were doing the arts and ballet and all that. Now here you are, sports broadcasting. But it is kind of an interesting path that I took, I guess, to get to this point.
Yeah, I usually like to ask people that come on my show kind of their story here. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. Did you always want to go to the University of Florida, or did you think about going to another school?
Well, so I grew up in Atlanta and we moved to the state of Florida when I was in late elementary school, and then we were in Orlando when I got to middle school. And so I wasn't as familiar with the state of Florida. Both my parents went to ACC schools. My mom went to Clemson. My dad went to Georgia Tech. So that was kind of my familiarity with, colleges and where I thought I might go. And then once we got to the state of Florida, I did start to love just the state and want to stay there. And I also had in-state academic scholarship to go to either Florida or Florida State. And so I was trying to choose, between the two. And it was funny because I went on a visit, much less like an official visit that an actual athlete would take. But I went on the visits to see both schools. And for me, it was just a no-brainer. And the funny thing was, I kept seeing after that, when I was going to make my choice, I kept seeing Gator paraphernalia everywhere, like everywhere that I went. So I just thought, okay, this is a sign from the universe that I am supposed to go to the University of Florida. And of course, it was the best decision that I could have ever made. And I ended up there at such a great time, certainly 2007 to 2011. If you wanted to go into sports broadcasting and to have the hands-on experience that I had at Florida at the time, it was just magnificent. And it really did set the tone for the rest of my career.
Talk about how you got into it. I know I've read and I do a lot of radio during football season with Steve Russell, and he obviously loves working with Laura Rutledge. But talk about, you didn't even really want to be a sportscaster, just kind of how you went over to the journalism school and it kind of fell into your lap.
Yeah. So, as I told you, I had been a serious ballet dancer to the point that I thought that was going to be my career for a while. And then when I did decide to, like I said, pursue college instead, but much to my parents' happiness, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, but I thought maybe something in communications. And so I wanted to make some extra money. And so somebody told me, well, there's the on-campus radio station, WRUF. And I thought, well, I've always loved radio and I loved storytelling and writing and all of that. And I thought, I'll just go up there and see if they've got any opportunity. And sure enough, they did. And Steve Russell said, yeah, we've got one opening and it's in sports. And so, I was this freshman in college, totally clueless, had no idea what I was doing, and went over there. And Steve is really, I really think, probably the most important person in my career and in my career path. And I will always, be so thankful for him, because he saw potential in me that I didn't know about myself, and that I really wouldn't have gotten where I got early on. But even now today, I mean, I just wouldn't have had the groundwork laid that I did had it not been for him taking a chance on me and seeing somebody that, was willing to work really hard, but had a long, long way to go. And I had so much to overcome. First of all, just the knowledge base and the experience base. This was all totally new to me and something that I was really going to have to learn from the ground up. But the second that I started, and the second that I got on air with Steve and at WRUF, I was hooked, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do. But in fact, the funny thing about that time, Shane, is that I really did not want to be on TV at all. I thought I'm going to be on the radio. Podcasts weren't even really much of a thing at that point, but I thought I'm going to do radio and that's going to be my thing. And then lo and behold, here I am today, where I still wish I could only do radio, but I guess we'll just throw that TV in there in there too when we have to.
Absolutely. We're speaking with Laura Rutledge on the Titan More Hotline. Laura, so once you leave University of Florida, you do some stuff, I think with the Rays, you do something out in San Diego, and then you get hooked up with ESPN, SEC Nation, all that good stuff. Right now, recently, you've been promoted to do NFL Live. Are you excited about that?
I'm so excited. Such an honor. And I mean, I truly, honestly, when I was in college and even right after that, my goal was to be the radio sideline reporter for Florida football broadcasts, which is Brady Ackerman's job. At the time, I thought if I could just do that, that would be my ultimate goal. So all of this has just been a blessing that I could have never even imagined. So I am really pumped, and we, to be part of the NFL franchise on ESPN, and to be, in the opportunity to sort of remake a show, which is what we're going to have the chance to do. NFL Live has been a cornerstone of ESPN's programming for all these years, and we're going to kind of do some different things with it, but also still keep it in that same great vein that it's always been in, which has been just a show talking football. And I'm really excited about that, and excited for the prospect of, after such a long time of trying to invent content, hopefully getting to the point where we really can talk football and we really can talk about a season that will happen.
Hey, Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking to Chris Doring, so you got Doring, Jesse Palmer, Tebow, yourself, probably leaving somebody out. All there working, they're in the ESPN family together. Y'all talk a lot of trash to the other people?
Of course. I mean, especially Doring, though. I tell you what, he isn't shy about it. Sometimes the rest of us have to. Well, actually, I take that back. Tebow is a major trash talker. He just does it in kind of the Tim Tebow way. But there is nothing that gets him more fired up than, having people come at him. Especially, we've got all these Georgia people that also work at ESPN with David Pollock and Maria Taylor and such, and Stinchcomb and all them, so that they'll come at us Florida people, and especially Florida Georgia week, that just gets crazy and wild between all of us at ESPN. But it's funny because a couple years ago, Maria and I had a bet about what would happen if Florida beat Georgia. She was going to have to wear a Gator jersey and do a Gator cheer, and if Georgia beat Florida, I was going to have to do that with the Georgia jersey and the Georgia cheer. Unfortunately, Florida didn't get the job done, so I had to do, make good on my bet. But the funny part was, Tim was supposed to be part of that, and he looked at me and he goes, I can't do it because there is a chance that Florida won't win the game, and I cannot put on a Georgia jersey. I mean, and look, I consider myself a tried and true Gator, and obviously I'm a fan, but it was so hard for Tim to even imagine the idea of putting on a Georgia jersey that he couldn't even do the bet. So that it gets serious amongst all of us Florida people, and especially with the Georgia people who are our fellow employees.
Yeah. Speaking of chants, I want to get your thoughts. A couple month ago, whatever, the president here banned the Gator bait chant. What's Laura Rutledge's thought on that?
Well, look, I mean, we are living in unprecedented times for a variety of reasons. And I think there's a lot of change that has been needed, and, is part of our new life, and what maybe things should have been like before. This one, to me, was a little harder to stomach, just because I think that it wasn't rooted in some of the things that some people insinuated that it was, and that's where I think all of us are just trying to learn right now and figure out what is okay and what's not okay and what's going to make everybody feel more comfortable. And I do think that at the end of the day, that's what's most important. So look, it's a tradition that I think we've all known and loved, and it's been a part of Florida football and Florida sports in general. But if it's going to offend people, then okay, I guess we've got to get rid of it. It's interesting to me too, because I think I look at this from my own experience, which is all I can do, and I'm trying to just open my mind to every single thing that's out there right now. But while I was at Florida, in addition to doing all my radio and all that, I was in charge of the Tradition Keepers program with the Florida Cicerones and with the Student Alumni Association. So TK, which is what it was for short, but I mean, you're probably familiar with it. I don't have to give the commercial, but it was basically, you could have the bronze, silver, or gold medal at graduation if you completed the traditions. And so those traditions at Florida were so important to me, and not just because I was affiliated with that, but it was really something that I thought was crucial to the college experience, and something that you just can't get back, and preserving those traditions for years. So as it relates to that side of things, it does, sort of get me a little bit where I'm sad that that's where we've gotten to. But like I said, just trying to open my mind as much as possible here, and try to do everything I can to help with making sure that every single person feels comfortable and valued.
Yeah. So Laura, let's talk about the SEC Nation. I don't think Paul Feinbaum and Marcus Spears are no longer on. First of all, how was it working with those guys? And do you enjoy traveling around to all the different venues in the SEC?
Oh, there's no greater joy than hosting SEC Nation. It's still one of those things that I pinch myself. I can't believe I have the chance to do. In fact, I still keep on my phone, when I load up my internet on my phone, the page I always have open is the press release when that was announced that I was going to be the SEC Nation host, because that just truly has been one of the greatest moments in my life, and something that I'll always be so thankful for, and I never want to lose sight of that. But traveling around with those guys has been such a ball and such a blast. I mean, you think about the personalities that we've had on our SEC Nation bus, between Paul Feinbaum and Marcus Spears, the big swagoo, Tim Tebow. It's just crazy. So it's been a real blast, and I'm excited for those guys and some of the new ventures that they're doing. But look, they're always going to be part of our SEC Nation family, and that part will never change.
So tell us the story. You married I want to say he played at Alabama, professional baseball player, played for what, the Rockies and the Red Sox, I believe, Josh Rutledge. But tell the story how y'all met. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, so Josh, he did play at Alabama, and he was drafted by the Rockies. That's where he made his debut, and then played after that for the Angels and the Red Sox for a few years, and then finished his career with the San Francisco Giants. And so proud of him in his work that he's done after baseball. I think sometimes that transition can be hard, but he's gotten into financial advising, and he's doing really well. But anyway, yeah, we met in 2011. It was actually the Alabama LSU game, the first time they played, when again, of course, later that year they met in the national championship. But that first game, which was the original game of the century, right? Then we had the other game of the century this past season. But I was there as, fresh out of college. I was working for Fox Sports at the time, and I was doing like a tailgate piece. And so my producer said, "Oh, well, I've got this connection at the Alabama baseball tailgate." And I looked at her and said, "That actually sounds like a nightmare to me, but fine. If you think we're going to go there and talk to a bunch of drunk baseball players, then I guess that's what we'll do." So we went to this baseball tailgate. And, the guy that owns it actually is now, one of my friends. Of course, at the time was Josh's friend, but his name's Roger Myers. So he always laughs about the fact that, love sparked at his tailgate. But anyway, so Josh was there. And if you haven't seen what he looks like, he really does look like Leonardo DiCaprio. And I don't know, I think he's actually better looking than Leonardo DiCaprio. But I saw him and I thought, that guy is so good looking. He's probably up to no good. Like, you just don't get a good vibe from that. You can't be too good looking. I'm sure you can relate. So Doring definitely can relate. He tells me all the time. So anyway, so but we started talking and I thought, all right, well, he seems like a nice enough guy, but whatever, I'm not interested in that. So anyway, then Alabama loses that game. And I actually saw, this is a lesser told part of the story. I actually saw him later that night at a bar in Tuscaloosa, and he was double fisted. He had two beers going in his mouth at once. And I thought, well, this is really not necessarily my kind of guy, but he seems like a lot of fun. I mean, so what can you say? So anyway, that was when Twitter was relatively new. And so we ended up sliding into each other's DMs, but we didn't even know what that was, because Twitter was just like not even a thing at that point. So whatever, we sent each other a couple messages like, hey, what's up? It was me that met you at the tailgate. And then about a week later, I was in Birmingham covering some high school football and ran into him at a Zoe's Kitchen in Birmingham. And he was like, oh, it's you. And I mean, we were not stalking each other. It was just pure serendipity that we ended up in the same Zoe's Kitchen, and we sat down and had a lunch. And from there, it was pretty soon after that we started dating. And then not terribly long after that we got married. We only dated for a couple of years and then got married. So he's awesome. And the only thing that sometimes we have a real issue with is the fact that he thinks that I should be an Alabama fan. And I'm like, dude, that's great if you want to be an Alabama fan. I went to Florida, so we're not gonna. That's just not gonna happen. And so now we have a daughter, our 9-month-old baby Reese, and it's always like, all right, well, she's only gonna root for Alabama, and I'm like, no, I'm putting her in as much orange and blue as possible, and she is definitely going to choose my school over yours.
That's great. I was going to ask you about your daughter Reese. With your crazy schedule, does he have to stay home and play Mr. Mom most of the time?
He's had to play Mr. Mom a good bit, but he's been so great with it, and it's been good that he's got some flexibility with his job to work from home and all that. But we're kind of tag teaming the whole thing. I can't tell you how often. I mean, especially during this time of working from home, and now I've got the studio in the house that we're operating out of, where it's just like, who knows when she's gonna randomly pop on the screen between her and the dog, because we're just trying to juggle a lot, as everybody is, and everybody can relate to that. But yeah, he has, I think, learned a lot about parenting in a very short period of time, as have I.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, are you still with doing NFL Live, SEC Nation? Are you still going to be on Get Up with Greenberg?
I think sometimes, yeah. I mean, they're still trying to figure out all of that and how that schedule is going to work, with an everyday show on ESPN, which is what I was doing with Get Up as well. Sometimes it's like a juggling act where there's not even enough time during the day. But I do think that I'll contribute, as much as I can and as much as is wanted to Get Up and kind of whatever shows, would need my services, but the main focus will be NFL Live for sure.
So let's talk football real quick before we let you go. Obviously, the Gators with Dan Mullen, his 2 years here, they've won 21 games, won 2 major bowl games, have a lot of guys coming back, including the quarterback, Kyle Trask. A lot of people think this is the year they can take over Georgia. What do you think the Gators can do this year if we play football?
Look, I'm so excited for what Dan Mullen has done with this program. And I think if you look back at a pivotal moment when Florida decided to hire Mullen and, was kind of the leader in the clubhouse in those sweepstakes and ended up getting him. And all these other schools, at the time, remember, we're making these hires, and you look around the country and you look even closely around the SEC, Florida made the best hire. And I continually thought that at the time, but that has been proven so right now. And a lot of us thought that, right? So I think that's been just wonderful to see. And I think that Florida is so close to Georgia this year. The one thing that I think makes a big difference is what you just mentioned with Kyle Trask. There's continuity at such an important position, and a guy that it's not just about, well, I get tired of people saying, well, he's got this great story. That's true. But he's a good quarterback. And he is somebody that I think when you look at the quarterbacks in the SEC has a chance to be at the top or at least near the top, which is, especially in Mullen's dynamic offense, is going to be so key, when it comes to what's going to happen in this SEC. So they're right there. I don't know that right this second I would pick them to beat Georgia, because I do think that Georgia still has such a powerful team top to bottom. But the big question mark is Jamie Newman at the quarterback spot. And he is somebody that, is coming in and having to learn this offense. I think had we been in a different year where there weren't all these issues going on, and where players could be there learning the playbook like they normally would be, maybe he would be in position to be ahead of the game a little bit. But it's going to be difficult for him to sort of be fast tracked into learning a new offense and all that. So I think that this could be the year for Florida. I don't know that I'm necessarily ready right this second, without having seen what some of these teams look like, to pick them to beat Georgia just yet. But I think they're so close, and they've never been closer. And if it's not this year, it's going to be really, really soon.
Laura, what's your favorite sport to cover? You're married to a baseball guy. Obviously, you cover probably more football than anything, but is football your favorite sport to cover?
It is, but I got to tell you, some of my favorite memories of covering anything actually has been college baseball. And my first year at Omaha was when Florida won the College World Series. It was just like, it couldn't have been more perfect. I've never been so close to like actually cheering. I think usually I maintain professionalism, but that was just so cool that would happen. And I'm sure you guys remember that series where they beat LSU in those 2 games. And it was like Kevin O'Sullivan just rolled every dice and it worked perfectly. I think maybe die is the plural word for dice. But anyway, it worked perfectly. He made all the right gambles. Jackson Coar comes in as your guy that's going to be, your game 3 starter. He comes in and closes out the win. I mean, it was just unbelievable how that series played out, and so much fun to cover as somebody who went to Florida and is a baseball fan. So while football is my favorite, I still always will love college baseball, and specifically the College World Series and the first year covering it when Florida won.
2 more questions for you. Who would you say, in the years that you've done this, and your resume is outstanding and you've moved very quickly up the ladder, who's the best interview that you've had so far?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. And there've been so many. I would say one of the best interviews I think that I've ever had, and this probably didn't even get played that much, but when Oklahoma lost to Alabama in the Orange Bowl, so this wasn't last year, but the year before that, I interviewed Lincoln Riley after the loss. And this is, of course, when Kyler Murray, we all knew he was going to declare, but it wasn't official yet. And I just thought, in a loss and in a moment when, look, Oklahoma, people forget that Oklahoma had really made that a game. And Kyler Murray had like over 400 yards in the game. He was unbelievable against Alabama's defense, which wasn't necessarily the Alabama defenses that we traditionally think about, but still a pretty good defense with Quinnen Williams leading the way there. So Lincoln Riley was just so classy in the interview and so reflective on Kyler Murray, and it ended up being just a really interesting interview for me to kind of think back on, because the interviews when people win are so easy. I mean, I'm not easy as in like you can sit there and say no matter what, they're going to be in a great mood, you're going to get great answers, all that. But when they lose, it becomes much more difficult, and it becomes difficult to keep it simple. But I do still think that the most simple questions work the best. So that would be one that I think sticks out to me.
Very cool. Last thing, I'm not sure. I guess Coach Spurrier was still coaching at South Carolina a little bit when you were working at ESPN, but you know him. He's I ask all the former players and obviously people that have covered him, you got to have some great head ball coach stories. You got one to tell us?
Oh my goodness, he's the best. So I have a really funny one. So recently, during this quarantine time, I did a show for SEC Network called No Off Season, and we were just trying to get as many interviews as possible with interesting people to find out what people were doing. And so we interviewed Coach Spurrier, and he has a flip phone and also an iPhone. So we were basically doing these, anybody could do them from their phone. And we had Coach Mullen on, he did it from his computer. It was very easy to load up. But the way that we were trying to get Coach Spurrier to do it, I called him on his flip phone to tell him how to do on his iPhone. And you can just imagine the back and forth. And it took us about 20 minutes to get the thing set up. Ended up to where Jerry just set it up because we were just like, he is not going to be able to figure it out. But we finally got through it, and he was so great. And he's just such a wonderful person and so funny. I find him to be just hilarious. In fact, I'm always trying to keep a straight face. But he ended up finishing up the whole thing by telling me that he was going to go eat some pretzels and have a cold beer. And I was like, there's really nothing better than that. I mean, it was just the most classic Spurrier moment, and I will forever remember it as one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's a unique guy, no question about it. Well, Laura, we appreciate you taking time to join the program today. Be safe with all your travels, and we'll be checking you out on NFL Live and SEC Nation this year.
Awesome. Thank you, guys, and everybody be safe and well.
All right, that's Laura Rutledge. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Pat Dooley from the Gainesville. You're watching and listening. They're caught up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Bob in trouble, gets ready to throw. Big hit.
Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guide, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Weeby Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, and Pomodoro Cafe. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown!
Welcome back to a Thursday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida. Understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. We're going to now go from the beauty to the beast. Here's our man Pat Dooley from the Gainesville Sun. We had Laura Rutledge on earlier, and she said she loves her some Pat Dooley.
Well, I love her. She's one of the best. You know that, Shane. She's as good as they get. We're very lucky that here in this community that we have people like Erin Andrews and Laura Rutledge that are not only unbelievable, beautiful women, but are great, nice people and sweethearts, and you just love being around them, and they'll do just about anything for you. So Laura's one of my faves. There's no question about it.
So Pat, let's talk about some news that broke yesterday. Stanford, who has 37, 38 sports there, they cut 11 of them, I believe. Ohio State, North Carolina have suspended all workouts. Your thoughts on what's going on?
Well, yeah, we're back to the doomsday effect. But I will say this. I don't know that those stories are even connected because from what I've read, Stanford was already had overextended itself before COVID came. They, just let us get another sport. Let's have Tiddlywinks because we want to keep winning that Directors Cup. And they were financially in a mess. And then COVID came. So They were going to cut some sports anyway, and they didn't cut anything of real significance. I mean, wrestling, I guess, would be the biggest name. So
Like rowing,
people,
fencing, all this
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
lightweight rowing, which I don't even know what that means. Does that mean you can only pump somebody who's 100 pounds into the coxswain? But I don't know. I mean, so I think people were kind of lumping those together, but certainly the North Carolina and Ohio State, you're talking about two blue blood programs. I mean, North Carolina is certainly not at that level of Ohio State, but they are with what's going on with recruiting right now. And for them to pause it tells you that just how serious this is being taken, and that's a good thing. But look, I've got a column I'm going to write. I think it's going to run tomorrow, Shane. Greg Sankey said there were 17 or 18 scenarios. I'm going to tell you what I think those 17 or 18 scenarios are, and they are all over the place. They're starting here, starting there, not coming back till here, pausing here, having a playoff in after the Super Bowl. I mean, I think just about everything is on the table.
Yeah, and then we talked about what Ohio State and North Carolina have done. The Ivy League basically said, boom, we're done. No football this year. I don't know if they suspended it till possibly in the spring or they just said no football this year. That's what they were the first to go when we started the conference tournaments in basketball. Is that a bad sign for the rest of us college football fans?
I think some people are making it into a bad sign, but I mean, look, here's the bottom line. Why do we think that college football is so important to be played? The number one reason is finances, and it's not just the money that you make; it's the money you need to run your other programs, and that's why they are trying to figure out a way to run it. The Ivy League's like, we don't need your stinking money. We get endowments of like $200 billion, so they don't need to play football for the money. So I think they are, again, unrelated, even though people are going to connect the dots and use that to me, it's apples and oranges what the Ivy League did with this basketball tournament and what they're doing now. They're not going to play until they said they're going to look at the spring, but they're not even committed to the spring. I don't think anybody's going to miss them. And but the bottom line is they have a different situation. They don't need the money. They don't get the money that the SEC, for example, will get if they are able to play. And that I still think they're going to find a way to play sometime, some way, some amount of games. May not be in the fall, but it's going to happen between now and the end of the fiscal year in June.
Yeah. What so speaking of that, Pat, when you look, I mean, the SEC commissioner, didn't he say they were going to try to make a decision? Wasn't it the end of the month? I can't remember the date that he said.
Well, I've been told by people at UF that August 1 is the date where you're going to know. Now, it could be that they come out on July 31st and make that, or it could be the 29th, but it's going to happen then. That's where we're going to get an answer, a definitive answer. The answer we've been waiting for, really, since this started. We've been waiting for an answer of, okay, are we going to play? When are we going to play? What's it going to look like? How many teams? How many games? Conference only? Whatever it ends up being. I think that's when you're going to get a definitive answer. Now, that answer will be, here's what we're going to do going forward. However, we may have to pause. We may have to stop. We may have to do all kinds of things. I'm a big believer in starting the season and then building in bye weeks so that you only play 8 conference games and that's it. And maybe if you want to play FSU, if Georgia wants to play Georgia Tech, so you have a 9-week season, but you say, we don't know when it's going to end, because if a team's entire offensive line tests positive and they need a 2-week, isolation, you get 2 weeks off. We'll reschedule again. I think you have to have a totally flexible schedule. You start it whenever you can start it, and then you play a game. And if everything goes fine, you play the next game. build in all these open weeks, it's not going to be ideal. We're probably not going to feel like we're crowning a true champ, but it will allow football to be played and the revenue to come in, especially from the TV.
Do you think from a professional standpoint, do you think the NFL will start on time and run smoothly? Because it's a different animal really than college football, or does it matter? Do we have to wait and see what happens with the NBA and Major League Baseball here in the next month?
Well, I think the NFL is basically committed to, we're going to play on time. We're going to have games. We may not have fans in stadiums, or there might only be a few, but we're going to play for our TV partners. We have to. If people test positive, what do? You isolate them, you treat them, and you bring in guys off the street to play if you have to. Because, I mean, we know there's a lot of good football players. I think maybe you go out and play there about week 9, go out there and throw some balls around. So, yeah, no, I think the NFL is the most committed of any league towards playing a regular season. Now, obviously, they're going to get rid of the preseason, which they should do anyway. I think you'll find out how little they missed the preseason. But it is going to be still interesting for college football to watch the NBA and Major League Baseball and see how everything goes. I mean, we've already seen people opt out, but to me, guys who are opting out isn't affecting me. It's the only thing that's going to affect me is if they don't play. We're all I don't think any of us in this community are huge NBA or Major League Baseball fans, except Cardozo, of course. But we still want to watch something. We want to have some. I want a reason. I got 2 TVs over here. I want a reason to put them both on. I haven't put them both on in 17 weeks. It's killing me.
No doubt. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. July is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with Pat Dooley, columnist of the Gainesville Sun. You can also check him out on the tailgate. He and Jeff Cardozo, 4 to 6 weekdays on RUF, ESPN Gainesville. Pat, I guess it's been about a month now. University of Florida president banned the chant Gator Bait. We haven't been able to speak with you since that all happened. Give me your thoughts on it.
My first thought was, what? What are you talking about? I can't believe this has happened. What? I don't get it. And then you start to get educated, which is what this whole process is about. Education and listening to things that we maybe didn't know or weren't aware of. Look, Shane, I've written 3 books on the University of Florida on the history of the program. I never came across this before. But then as I read and heard and talked to people about it, my gut is the first guy that probably yelled out Gator Bait was referring to this, this legend that was out there. And whether it even happened or not, it's just this legend. And now it's hard for me to get it out of my mind. There are plenty of cheers at the University of Florida. You got a lot. Let's bring back Gators got that Rama Jamma. Let's bring back the Banana Man that used to dance on top of the dugout in a banana suit. There's plenty of things you can do, and you can still yell Gator Bait if you want to. Hopefully there's no fight in the stands over it. Are people going to look at you and say, "Oh, you're a racist because you yelled Gator Bait"? We don't want those kind of troubles. But I think it was a little bit of an overreaction. I think it could have been handled way better. But I do get it. I'm okay with it, and I think if that's the biggest problem we have, to me, it's almost like the time that they accidentally put a picture of a crocodile on the media cover.
Oh,
and I remember Steve McClain saying, if that's the biggest trouble we have this year, we'll be fine. Well, it turned out Ron Zook got fired later in the year. So they had bigger issues to worry about.
We got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Melvin Law, where you matter most. Rick says, Pat, get that guitar down and play us a tune.
You don't want to hear that. I'm a very amateur guitar player, very amateur.
So, Pat, with the times that we're living in these days, a lot of name changes going on. I guess the Redskins are going to have to change their name. I don't know if the Chiefs are. I don't know if the Braves are going to have to. Give me your thoughts on that. Look, I got Native American in me, Cherokee Indian. I had zero problems and they didn't ask my opinion, but I have zero problems with teams being called Redskins, Indians, Braves. I just think it's strange.
Well, I do have a little bit of a problem with the Redskins. I don't have a problem with the Braves. To me, it's a I think it's a compliment. You're the Braves. You're and I'm a Braves fan. But if I would say if I had problems with it, I have no problem with the Chiefs. To me, the Chiefs is, uh, uh, you know, uh, to me it's again a compliment. The Chiefs. You're the Chiefs. But Redskins to me is a little bit of a slur. The problem I have, and the thing that would be the easiest to go away again for Florida, they're going to stop doing the band, dun, 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 and then Gator bait. So they stop doing the band. Eventually, the Gator bait cheer will fade away. You stop doing that war chant, and that will fade away too. I think that is demeaning at Atlanta Braves games and FSU games and the Chiefs games. I think that's a little ridiculous. I think they ought to get rid of it. And there've been a lot of we saw a player last year when the Braves were playing in the playoffs who said he was really offended by it because he was part Indian, and they didn't pass out the tomahawks, which is kind of it's just a little bit of a cliche thing to do. But I think the Redskins. I think there's a long history there of Daniel Snyder being stubborn. Daniel Snyder started a fund to help the Native Americans, and you know how much he gave to it this year? $0.0. Okay, so this is a guy who I'm not a big fan of anyway. You played up there. I don't know. I know your head coach up there wasn't a big fan of his up in Washington. I don't know how you feel about him. But I'm ready to get that one out of the way, and I'm ready to get the chant out of the way, and then I think we can kind of settle down after that.
Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. So, Pat, pretty much the only thing we can watch on TV these days is the PGA Tour, which I've been enjoying watching it. I think it's been some good golf, although they're just tearing up these courses. When you look at Bryson DeChambeau, his transformation, and I can't remember if it happened from last year to this year or if it was just during this pandemic. He got so much stronger. They talked about all the protein shakes and everything he was eating and how he was working out. And now he is just mashing the golf ball harder than anyone on tour. Your thoughts on the tour coming back and how they've handled everything? Because they've had some guys test positive, but they kept playing. Just have you seen a guy transform the way he has?
No, but I thought when you said we were going to talk about golf, we were going to talk about my 3 birdies Sunday.
We can talk about that too.
No, I think it's been a fascinating story, and the guy, the media, the golf writers who are very, they're a very snobby group as a rule. They don't like him either because he said, I mean, again, I thought he was way out of line saying, I can't believe a cameraman caught me saying something, a curse word, and he was being too intrusive. And I'm like, you're lucky anybody's out there taking your picture. I mean, you're lucky to be playing and making money in a sport where right now no fans are allowed out there. But yeah, he started that at the end of last year, at the end of the season before. He was already starting to bulk up. He had made a commitment. He had decided to. And then when he came back from the pandemic, I think people were like, what? You turned into the Hulk. You look like Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. So, and then he's taking those Happy Gilmore swings at it too. With his left foot is over there somewhere. He almost looks like he's going to explode one day. But he's finding a way to get around the golf course, and he's beat some really good fields. And I think he's had 6 straight top 10s. So I don't think people are going to follow in his footsteps in trying to do that, because I think I don't think it's good for you to eat 5 pieces of bacon a day. Okay. I just don't. I don't think it's good for you to drink those 6 protein shakes. I think he's taken it to a different level, and I think it's going to be a short-term benefit, but I think long term it's not going to be great. And I think most people value their bodies a little more than that. But and on the tour, certainly not sports writers. But yeah, so it's a fun story right now. It's an interesting story. He's now the favorite to win the Masters, which is and I think there's a guy down in Jupiter going, "What? Whoa! You haven't even seen me play yet. When I come back, I'm gonna be ready to go." And I would take Tiger over him right now just because Tiger will be all rusted. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to watch golf. I just wish our boy Billy Horschel had played more, has been playing more, and had played better. He's I've only seen him play in a couple of tournaments, but he's a guy I'm always looking for.
Yeah. Speaking of golf, what's the status on your golf tournament?
Yeah, we're in hold like everything else. I think it's doubtful we're going to even play this year. It's just going to be hard. The trouble is we have to get to a point where you can get two in a cart, and until we can get to that point, and then we have to be able to schedule it based on what the Gators are doing, and if the Gators have a schedule that's flexible, and we may play this week, we may play that week. My gut is that we're just going to postpone it to next year and probably be around May 8th, and it's a shame that we had it because we had 25 straight years, but now we had to take it off. I mean, it's one of those casualties of the corona.
Pat, we got a couple of Facebook Live comments here brought to you by Melvin Law, where you matter most. Todd and Rick both want to know. They say you've been covering the Gators for so long, you have to have a good Spurrier story to tell us today.
Oh, I got a few of them. You probably have as many as I do, but no. One of my favorite stories with Steve is when I went up to the last thing I did before I was going to have prostate cancer surgery was to go to Washington. He had just gotten there and do a big piece on Coach Spurrier, and he gave me free run of the place. I was, anywhere I wanted to go, I could go. The Washington Post had never been inside the head coach's office until, we got him in there. They were taking pictures, and they were like giddy. We can't believe we can take pictures in here finally for the first time. So he also organized a little golf tournament that we had, and I was beating him. I've beaten him a couple times, but he beat me more than I beaten him. I was beating him going to the 18th hole, par 5, killed my drive right down the middle. All right, Pat, you got to go for it. Said, all right. So I get down to my ball, and I said, Coach, where's the green? I don't see the green. He goes, oh, it's just a little dog leg. Goes right around that corner. You just hit a big high draw around there. You'll be putting for an eagle. I said, all right. So I hit it smooth. I said, because I was playing really good. And I go, all right, Coach, I think that's on it. And he goes, no, it's in the water. I said, well, you never said there was water up there. He goes, well, I'm laying up. So he lays up. Makes birdie, I make bogey. He takes my $20, but I did appreciate everything he did for me up there. We went to dinner and everything, and he, actually the check came, and he reached for it.
He did?
I know. He reached for it, and he looked the bill over, and then finally he goes, "We'll let the Redskins pay for this." So, even then, he didn't pay for it, but. I love the man. He is like he's in my top 3 or 4 of favorite people of all time. And I mean, I put my dad in there. I mean, that's how much I care about him.
Yeah. Last thing for you, Pat. Let everybody know what you're working on with the Gainesville Sun right now.
Yeah, I know we've done a million lists, and I know maybe you guys are tired of them, but there ain't nothing else to write. So I've got a couple of columns coming this week, but we're doing right now the top 25 players of the last decade, which has been a fun exercise. And I tell you, as much as anything, it's almost like crossword puzzles, Shane, where you got to come up with stuff and it keeps your brain active during this whole thing. But we started it yesterday. I think the next one will be up today, and it includes a guy who played last year on the team. But we aren't including anybody who's active because, to me, your legacy has not been written as a player when you're still playing. And also, we wouldn't let the kickers in. So
when you do a list like this, whether it's the top 100 players of all time, Do you get like on like a chalkboard, whiteboard, and you just start writing names down, and then you sit there with whoever, Robbie or whoever, and then we go, okay, we got to cross him off. How do y'all go through that process?
Yeah, I will tell you during the, as you said, during the top 100 teams, which we did back in 06, top 100 Gator players of all time, we did have a whiteboard out because it was a process, and it was, we didn't want to leave out guys who played, in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s because it wouldn't be fair to them. But with a lot of these, you just sit there and you jot down. In this case, I think I got to 32 people that I felt deserved to be on it, and then you had to kind of go through and eliminate them. And a lot of times I'll just do it just sitting in my easy chair with golf on as kind of background music, and go through those things. And every time we do something like that, in fact, the other day I wanted to get a hold of Eric Rett, so I went to some people at Florida to get Eric Rett for another thing I was doing, and the text came back, yeah, I'll talk to Pat. I like Pat. He's a good guy, except he put me number 34 in the list. I'm like, come on, man, that was a long time ago. And Alex Brown still hasn't forgiven me for where we put him on the all-time list. We did have him too low. We had him at 43, and he's not. He saw me at the Super Bowl. I'm at the Super Bowl media day when they're playing the Colts. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of standing in the back, and all of a sudden I see Alex Brown look up and kind of nod at me, and he goes, "Number 43, really?" And all these other national media looking around, going, "What's number 40? Who's number 43?" And I said, "I don't know that." I said, "That was Robbie's decision. I didn't have anything to do with that." So I threw Robbie right under the bus.
I'm surprised they know all that because where was I ranked?
Well, I know you're high.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we might have put you number 9 just because of your number. So
well, I'll take that.
But once you get in again, if we redid it, we would have a totally different group because you'd have to put in, Tebow, the Pounceys, Reggie Nelson, Jarvis Moss, Derek Harvey. I mean, there's a ton of players from that era, and the guys that have come on since then. The guys that are all on this list weren't included in that, so it would change. So you might drop down a couple spots, but not too many. I mean, you got those 2 trophies back there.
That's right.
SEC Player of the Year.
That's right. Last thing for you, Pat. We just got a Facebook Live question here for you, brought to you by Metal Law, where you matter most. Gary wants to know, why are you wearing a Virginia T-shirt?
Well, I don't wear Florida T-shirts. It's kind of a policy that we have. We're not supposed to show that we're homers, right? So you don't want to walk around with "Go Gators" all the time. You're supposed to be an objective. But I like to wear T-shirts from different schools. This T-shirt I bought because they knocked that cheating Bruce Pearl out of the NCAA tournament, and that's all. And the same year they beat Florida State in football, so I bought it. So I'm not a homer. I'm just a negative homer. I'm against certain things. So that's why I proudly wear my Virginia Cavaliers T-shirt, because they beat Bruce Pearl, and I cannot stand that guy.
Well, there you have it. Well, Pat, stay safe, my man. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Obviously, you are not going to be the star of today's podcast. It's going to be I know that bothers you, but anyway, stay safe.
Not really.
We appreciate you getting up early this morning and joining us. Thanks, my man.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it, buddy.
That's Pat Dooley from the Gainesville Sun. You can also check him out on WRUF with Jeff Cardozo on the tailgate. Folks, This Day in Sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Don't fight your area rugs. Take them to Area Rug Masters. With their convenient curbside services, you will never need to go anywhere else. Call 352-448-5999. This Day in Sports, back in 1968, Wilt Chamberlain becomes the first reigning NBA MVP to be traded the next season when he moves from the 76ers to the LA Lakers. Again, we want to thank Laura Rutledge from the SEC Network and ESPN for joining us today, and also Pat Dooley from the Gainesville Sun. Tomorrow's program, we're going to wrap up the week. We're going to have a little golf edition. We're going to have John Rieger talking golf, very involved with the PGA Tour, and former Gator national champ, the first national championship that the university ever won. John Dar Sr. was part of that team. So we'll be talking golf a lot tomorrow. Next week's lineup is going to be outstanding. Just to let you know, we're going to give you a little rundown here real quick. We're going to have Gene Chizik, former Gator, played here, been a long-time coach now with the SEC Network. John Kitna, my former teammate, played a long time at quarterback. The reason we're going to have him on, his son is a quarterback that's committed to the Gators. We're also going to have Kez McCorvey, my former high school teammate that was a great wide receiver for the Florida State Seminoles. We're going to have former Gator coach Galen Hall on the program next week, and also have my former freshman brother, all-time leading interceptor here, Will White, an All-American defensive back. So got a great lineup for you. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you go on Facebook Live. Follow us. You can like us, but really follow us. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. That's going to be a wrap today, folks. It's brought to you by Wrap Spot. Stay safe. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll see you. Take care.